Welcome everyone. This is Diana Petschower and your host for Apps Across the Curriculum. If you give me just one moment, I'm going to share my iPad screen with everyone so we can get started with this afternoon's webinar. You should see my iPad screen at this time. And I'm just going to pull up my website as I'm talking. So this is, again, Diana Petschower. I'm a RESNA certified assistive technology professional and founder of the company Assistive Technology for Education. My consultants and I do travel throughout New England to provide assistive technology assessments and evaluations, as well as training for students to access education and for adults to access employment, as well as access to community, the home, etc. And this afternoon, you are attending Apps Across the Curriculum. This is the first webinar in a series of 3. And if you are attending the full course, we'll be talking more about the course in Center for Technology and Disability website, and we'll get you through all of that as well if you are attending for ECUs and doing the online discussions with us, which would be wonderful. So this first webinar is going to incorporate built-in accessibility to iOS devices and also iPad apps for struggling learners, or for all learners, but certainly to support those struggling learners as well. And the next couple of webinars in the series will be discussing apps for Chromebooks and all other devices, but this particular webinar is focused on iOS devices. So what you're learning this afternoon can be applied to iPad, the iPad mini, iPod Touch, and iPhone. If you have any questions as we go along, please feel free to type them into the chat. I'll be stopping periodically, and our hosts from Center on Technology and Disability will be reading your questions to me. I will try to get to as many as possible throughout the webinar, but I want to make sure that you receive all the information that I have to present. And then any further questions you can certainly ask throughout this week on the discussion forum, so you will have your questions answered if we don't get to them during the webinar. So I'm going to introduce the co-presenter for the beginning of the webinar, who is Luis Perez. He is an Apple Distinguished Educator and Google Certified Teacher. And as we get into the beginning of iOS accessibility, Luis is going to be sharing his screen and his iPad, and then we'll be switching back over to mine, and I'll be showing further iOS accessibility options. So I'm going to stop sharing my screen and hand it over to Luis, who will tell you more about himself.
Hello, everybody. This is Luis Perez. I hope you can see my screen right now. Everything looking good over there, Diana?
Everything looks great. I see it.
All right. Well, thank you for the opportunity to co-present with you, Diana. It's a great pleasure for me to share about iOS accessibility, primarily because a lot of these features that I'm going to talk about, actually I'm going to focus on just 2, are features that I myself use as a person with a visual impairment. And I use them to access the curriculum as I was going through school, and I use them now in the work that I do as an inclusive learning consultant to help teachers support all students in learning. So what I'm going to do here, I only have a few minutes. I'm going to get right into it. And the first thing that I want to show you is if you have an iOS device, an iPhone, iPad, as Diana was mentioning, if you go into your settings and you want to find where the accessibility options are, just look for General. So here I'm on an iPad, so General is going to be over on the left side of the screen. When I choose General, then I'll find Accessibility. And you'll notice the accessibility features here are organized into different categories. Some correspond to different needs that people may have, such as vision or hearing. And then there's some categories that kind of cut across, such as media. So if you're watching videos, for example, you can turn on the subtitles and captioning. And then there's also guided access for learning, and I'm sure Diana is going to cover that in more detail later. So I'm going to focus on the ones under vision, which are the features that I use as a person with a visual impairment. So the first one I want to talk about is Zoom. And Zoom provides screen magnification. You can turn it on and off at the top of the screen here. The one thing is when you turn this on, at first you won't see anything happen. In order to use this feature, what you need to do is take 3 fingers, and you can double tap on the screen, and that zooms in for you. And then you can drag with 3 fingers and kind of change what's shown on the screen while you're zoomed in. To exit out of the zoomed in mode, again, with 3 fingers, you'll double tap, and you're back to the normal view, or the default view. Now, that's the way that Zoom has worked up until iOS 8. But in iOS 8, Apple made a number of enhancements. And one of these, if you go on the Zoom region, you can go from full screen zoom, which I just showed you, to window mode. So now when I double tap with 3 fingers, I get a small window. And I can move that window around on the screen and magnify just part of the screen, the part of the screen that I want to focus on, like so. I can move that window. Again, there's a small handle at the bottom of it. And if I grab that handle, I can move it anywhere I want. If I tap the handle, it will bring up a menu with a number of options. This is where you can increase the zoom. You can lower it. And then if you tap on Choose Filter, one nice feature that I like to use is to turn on the inverted filter. And so now basically I get 2 features for the price of 1. I have it zoomed in, but I also have the screen reversed so that I get more contrast within that small window. The rest of the screen remains in the default view. The colors are not reversed and they're in the default magnification, but whatever's inside of the window is not only magnified, but I also now have inverted colors. So it makes it easier for me to read the text. And so again, within that small menu that you get when you tap the handle, you can change zoom modes. You can go back and forth between full screen and window mode. You can even resize the window, and you can also show a controller. The controller is really handy. It basically allows you to navigate with Zoom, and it also allows you to turn it on and off by double tapping. So it's a nice way to use Zoom. It makes it much quicker. You can double tap that menu, it brings it back on, or you can double tap it and it hides it. Or if you tap it once, it brings up the menu with the options. So that's one of the features that I use the most because I still have some vision. And so there are times when I just need to zoom in on content and I'll turn on Zoom. The other feature I want to discuss very quickly here is VoiceOver. VoiceOver is a full-feature screen reader. I could do a whole session just on VoiceOver. And it really is a game-changer technology when it first introduced to the iPhone. Because the iPhone is just a flat surface. It doesn't have any buttons on it. So it's kind of difficult for somebody who's blind to use it. And so VoiceOver provides a means of accessing a touchscreen device if you're blind. I'm going to turn on VoiceOver real quick. So again, I'm under Accessibility and then Vision, and I'm going to choose VoiceOver. And when I turn VoiceOver on, settings, you'll hear the synthesized speech kick in. I can basically change what VoiceOver reads out loud. It's very simple. You just move your finger around on the screen, and whatever's underneath your finger, that's what VoiceOver is going to read out loud.
VoiceOver speaks items on the screen. Tap once to select an item. Double tap to activate the selected item.
And so that's the basic way that VoiceOver works. You first make a selection, and then you double tap to act on it. And the nice thing is that if you're blind, you can just double tap anywhere on the screen. So for example, I'm going to go out to the home screen here.
Notes.
And let's say that I want to launch the Notes app. I can just double tap anywhere on the screen, and as long as Notes is selected, and I can hear that the name of that app, if I double tap, it will launch that app.
Notes, note, text field is editing. Quick nav off.
And to exit out of the app, I'll just press the home button the usual way that I would do it. Now, there are a couple of cool things you can do with VoiceOver. I'm going to open up the Notes app.
Notes, note, text field is editing. Quick nav off.
And just to show you one of the new features that was introduced in iOS 7, this is called handwriting recognition. And I'm going to use a special gesture because VoiceOver is a gesture-based screen reader. In other words, you perform a series of flicks, swipes, and so on in order to interact with it. And a special gesture for VoiceOver is called the rotor. What I'm going to do is put 2 fingers on the screen, and then I'm going to pretend to turn an invisible dial.
Braille screen input, portrait, handwriting, lowercase.
I will see an indication on the screen that I'm turning this virtual dial, and when it gets to handwriting, now what I can do is just write on the screen.
N. O.
And it recognizes the input from my handwriting and converts it into text. And conversely, I also have
Braille screen input, portrait, screen away mode, 8 dot.
I have Braille. And so I can just enter a Braille pattern on the screen, and VoiceOver will recognize it and turn it into text. And I don't know much Braille, but if I just tap
1.
I can enter some Braille. Now, VoiceOver also supports refreshable Braille displays, which you can connect using a Bluetooth connection. So it's a really versatile screen reader.
Home.
And the nice feature introduced in iOS 8 is that you now have the same high-quality voice that has been available previously only on the Mac. This voice is called Alex. It not only is very natural sounding, but it also does a great job with synthesized speech, with the clarity of it. So there's a lot more to VoiceOver. I could go on, but I only have a few minutes. So I will pause here, and then I will turn it back to Diana and answer any questions that you may have about these 2 accessibility features.
Thank you, Louis. Before you stop sharing your screen, you do have a couple of questions, so you might want to still demonstrate while you're answering them. I'll read them to you. The first one was, while you were demonstrating Zoom, are you personally able to keep your orientation on the screen when you do that? I've had a hard time as a sighted person doing that.
I do. Zoom did not work for me before when I used it as with the full screen mode. Hopefully that's what she's referring to. But I find that I can use them much better now that they have that windowed mode, because the rest of the screen provides some context for me and allows me to sort of know where I am. And so I find it much more user-friendly now. Now, before I let you go to the next question, one thing that I forgot to mention, if you're going to try VoiceOver on your own, and I always forget to mention this, but it's really important with some of these accessibility features, is to turn on something called the accessibility shortcut. The accessibility shortcut allows you to turn on accessibility features on and off by triple-clicking the home button, which I'm going to do here.
Alert, accessibility options.
And that allows you to turn them on and off. If you have multiple ones selected, you get a menu. If you don't have multiple selected, like if you just have one accessibility feature selected, it just turns it off right away. So I'm going to show you where you can enable and disable this accessibility shortcut. I'm going to turn off VoiceOver first.
VoiceOver off.
If you go to Settings, and again under General, Accessibility, all the way at the bottom, you're going to find an option called the Accessibility Shortcut. And as you can see right now, I have 2 features turned on, VoiceOver and Switch Control. If I turn off Switch Control, in other words, I make sure that there's no check mark next to its name, and I have just VoiceOver for the accessibility shortcut, now I can turn it back on just by triple-clicking Home.
VoiceOver on, Settings.
Or I can triple-click Home to turn it off.
VoiceOver off.
So that's a really handy feature. It makes it much easier if you're new to something like VoiceOver or even Switch Control. I would recommend going in, and before you get started, make sure that accessibility shortcut is set up for that feature that you want to experiment with. Sorry about that, Diana. I forgot to mention that earlier, and I think it's really important.
No worries. I'm glad you did. It's definitely a helpful feature, as you mentioned, because sometimes people turn on VoiceOver and then have no idea how to navigate back to the settings to turn it off. And if it's on that accessibility shortcut, as you mentioned, they just hit their home button 3 times and boom, it's off. So that's wonderful to show.
And you said there was a second question?
There is. Well, it was actually, okay, yep, there's a comment and a question. The comment was, the Braille cell dot numbers do not look like the standard ones. And the question about the Braille dot numbers, standard is only 6 dots and the screen had 8. Also, the numbers were reversed.
It's because you can switch back and forth between 6 and 8 dots.
Okay, so you can switch between
so that's,
and 8.
and that's the first thing. The second thing is that I have the iPad on a stand, and it's facing towards me, whereas that feature is primarily meant to be used while you have the iPad facing away from you.
Oh, good
So
point.
in other
Okay.
words, the iPad's facing away from you, then you line up your fingers with those dots and you can calibrate it, and then it will make a little bit more sense.
That
So
answers
basically,
the question. Good.
yeah,
That
it's
second
because
was
I have the
numbers
iPad
were-
on the stand.
Go ahead.
No, it's because I have the iPad on the stand, so it's basically like trying to write backwards.
Thank you for that explanation. So that did answer the second part, which the numbers were reversed from standard, and you had them on the right side of your screen, and that's exactly why, because the person using it would not have it on a stand. They would have it facing away from them.
Yep.
Okay.
All
great.
right. So can I stop sharing my screen then, I guess?
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Louis.
All right. Let me do that real quick.
We're just going to switch back now. I'm going to go to share my screen so that I can share my iPad along with everyone again. Thank you so much, Louis, for your view on the accessibility settings, Zoom, and VoiceOver, and how you personally use them. I appreciate you joining us to explain that.
My pleasure.
And I am going to go into the settings now to go over a few of the other built-in accessibility features in addition to Zoom and VoiceOver that Louis just went over. So if you are following along on an iOS device, iPad or iPhone or iPad mini, and you'd like to go into these accessibility settings yourself, it is the gray gear icon. You can see it at the bottom of my screen on my toolbar. Yours may be up on your main screen. You want to tap on Settings. And as mentioned, on the left-hand side, you tap on General. That's why it is blue. General is selected. And on the right-hand side, you're going to tap on Accessibility. So right just about there in the middle. So the first two you notice are VoiceOver and Zoom. That's what Louis just went over for us. And below that is inverted colors. If you want to tap on inverted colors yourself on your iOS device, you will see that it does change the screen to white on black and high contrast with colors. Because I'm reflecting my iPad today with AirServer, when I tap on invert colors, you don't get to see that effect on my screen. But if you're following along with one, feel free to try that yourself. You can turn it on and off very easily. And just know that if you have a user who has low vision or cortical visual impairment, and some of us who are just aging and our eyes get tired, being able to invert the colors and have white on black or opposite contrast can be very helpful. Also grayscale below that if that is needed. And below that says speech, and this is one of my favorite accessibility features to show. VoiceOver at the top is wonderful for anyone who needs to have everything on the screen spoken out loud to them, most especially for someone who's low vision or completely blind. It's nice. Sometimes they want everything out loud spoken on the screen so that they can navigate and get to where they need to be, as well as have information read out loud. But for someone with a learning disability or another type of disability where they just want to have text-to-speech for information on the internet or worksheets, handouts, books, etc., some of those things I'm going to show you how to access today on the iPad, they may want to choose the information that they have read out loud to them, and that is by using this built-in speech feature. So left-hand side, general, right-hand side, accessibility, and now the fifth one down, we're going to tap on speech. Now with speech turned on, you want to turn on speak selection, and you want to turn on speak screen. Both of these are turned off by default on all iOS devices. So you do need to come into these settings in order to turn it on and use this feature. And we will be using it throughout many of the apps that I'm showing you today. You can change the speaking rate. You can see the slider there between the turtle and the rabbit.
Speak selection reads selected content. Speak selection reads selected content.
You can slow it down as needed.
Speak selection reads selected content.
You can choose to turn on highlight content, so when it's available, the content can also be highlighted as it's spoken out loud. And when speak selection is turned on, there are a few ways to use it. I'm going to hit my home button and go back to the internet on the iPad. So while you're in a website, the reverse pinch zoom is also nice. It's built in when it works on certain apps and website pages. If it didn't work, you can use the zoom feature, 3-finger double tap, when zoom is turned on, that Louis just demonstrated. So you can first increase the size, and if you want to have it read out loud, 2 ways to use that speech that we just turned on. You can press and hold on the screen and these blue dots appear. And you can move the blue dots to select the text that you want to have read out loud. So if a student or individual is researching on the internet and just wants to select the specific text that they want to have read out loud, they can press and hold on the screen, move the blue dots to select the text, and then tap Speak, which is the last option on that little toolbar that appeared.
Education provides assistive technology and accessibility services for students and adults to access education.
The second option, when you have Speech turned on, is a 2-finger swipe down from the top of the screen.
Skip to content. Primary menu. About. At assessments. At training and services.
So you see the toolbar that appeared at the top of the screen. It says Safari at the top. There's the turtle and the rabbit, the play, and the forward and the back buttons. And it just docked to the side of my website. So that little arrow to the left will dock this nice toolbar over to the left until they need to use it again. And when you pull it out, you can choose to have that information read out loud and certainly slow it down or speed it up as needed. And by tapping on that X, you can get rid of the toolbar altogether. So that is, again, if I hit my home button, going back into my accessibility settings, you do need to be in accessibility and you need to turn on speak selection so that those things work. And those options for having the text read out loud will also work in other apps that I'm going to show you today to have information read out loud as needed. Larger text. This is wonderful. You can choose larger accessibility sizes and then drag the slider to increase the text size that are in your messages and in your notes. So again, for someone who's low vision or just those of us who are aging and naturally want the text to be larger, that is a helpful feature built right in. Bold text, button shapes, increased contrast, all of these can be very helpful as you experiment or the individual or student experiment to may need some of these options. Under hearing, you'll notice hearing aids. Most newer hearing aids are Bluetooth capable, and if you turn this on, you're able to connect your hearing aid or the student. And the mono audio, by turning that on, will allow you to turn all of the sound on the iPad to the left or the right. So if a student or individual hears better out of the left or the right ear, you can put all the sound on one side, and certainly they can be using earbuds or headphones to be listening to the sound on the iPad. Subtitles and captioning available when it's available for that particular video. You do want to make sure you have that turned on. That benefits everyone, certainly not just those who are hearing impaired. English language learners, ADHD, having captioning on can really be helpful, and video descriptions. So video descriptions and subtitles and captioning when they are available, being able to have those on. Guided access. Guided access is certainly a wonderful built-in accessibility feature for your button-happy students. The students who don't like to remain on task can try to hit the home button to go out and play their favorite game or their favorite app or go to their favorite website. Guided access is a wonderful tool. You can also put this on your accessibility shortcut so that you can turn it on with 3-finger press of that home button, 1, 2, 3, 3-finger tap of the home button, I should clarify, and you can turn guided access on. So if you're in a particular app with a student and you want them to stay engaged in that app and you don't want them to be able to hit the home button, you'll turn on guided access. It'll ask you for a 4-digit passcode. Don't forget your passcode. Write it down, save it in a folder, make it your PIN, whatever you need to do, but don't forget the code and don't give it to the student. And that is going to keep them in that particular app or on that website until you put that code in again. So if they hit the home button, it would prompt them to put in a passcode, and if they don't have the passcode, they are going to remain in that app or activity. The other great thing about guided access now is that you can set a timer. So if you want that student or individual to be in that activity for 5 minutes and then automatically shut off so that you don't have to put the passcode in and they know when they're done, you can set that timer right along with the app or activity that they're in by using guided access. So if you haven't known about that particular built-in accessibility feature or explored it, certainly try that. It is a wonderful feature. It also allows you to disable anything on the screen. So if you have a go back button, for example, and a go forward button, and you only want the student to make forward progress, you can circle the go back button and it is then disabled. Many, many options with guided access to get into, so I do encourage you to try that out. Switch control. So as mentioned, there is the option to connect switches as well as other Bluetooth devices to the iPad or iOS devices. Switch control would be used for someone with a physical disability who might have a difficult time accessing the iPad in typical fashion. And with switch control, you could connect the switch and use scanning, so it would scan the screen and you could hit the switch to select, and then it could scan the screen again and you could hit the switch to select. Many different options in switch control. You can see auto scanning, auto tap, hold duration, and many of the switches that you may use also come with their own software that you may choose to use over switch control. You can use the built-in switch control and you can use the built-in switch control that are in the switches themselves. You have that option. Most of the switches will tell you. And I'll just pull up an example for anybody that might not be familiar with switches. If we go to example of assistive technology, pulling it up here, just want to show a picture as we're talking about them. So several different types of switches: Bluetooth, direct connect, Bluetooth means wireless, proximity switches, meaning they barely need to touch it. You can certainly adjust the pressure for certain switches with adjustable pressure switches, flat screen switches. There are just so many available. There's hundreds, probably thousands of switches on the market now to choose from, and there are switches for every part of the body. So if an individual with a physical disability is able to use their foot and not their hand, they could use a foot switch or an elbow or their head. Really, really so many ways that they can use a switch to access the iPad. So know that that is certainly an option. And before I leave the examples page, I just want to go up to what Louis mentioned earlier, these refreshable Braille displays. So while he was demonstrating VoiceOver, which will speak everything out loud, the built-in screen reader on the iOS devices, you can also connect a refreshable Braille display. If you're not familiar, this is what a couple of them look like. Again, hundreds of sizes and different models on the market through different companies. And the refreshable Braille display is for someone who knows how to read Braille and how to type Braille and now wants to use this electronic device in order to read everything out loud in real-time refreshable Braille, and also type using the Braille shortcut keys. So for example, if we had a refreshable Braille connected to my iPad, everything such as this website could be read out loud to me with VoiceOver, and this text would pop up in real-time refreshable Braille. Those little pins at the bottom pop up so that that information can be read in Braille. I do show you how to, oh, it looks like I'm losing air server. I might have to reconnect real quick. Do that real quick. So anyone who knows how to type using Braille can have their information from the internet read out loud, but also I'll show you how to get electronic books. There we go, we're back. Electronic books on the iPad, worksheets and handouts, and so those can be read out loud with the refreshable Braille display. They can be read out loud with VoiceOver rather, and they can also have that information in real-time Braille. So rather than have the large Braille book in their backpack or to carry around, they can have the electronic book and still be able to read it in Braille And if they're filling in a worksheet or typing a paper or an essay, they can use the Braille shortcut keys to type that information. And of course, it shows up in text on the screen. So what's wonderful about that is typically educators and professionals who don't read Braille can work very easily with a student who does read Braille, who's using a refreshable Braille display. And do encourage teachers of the visually impaired to receive training and how to use them and to teach their students how to use them. I have clients from third grade all the way through adults using them in education and employment. So they are wonderful devices for those who do read Braille and continue that literacy. So we're going to go back to our settings. And again, left-hand side general, right-hand side accessibility. Just give you a brief overview of most of the accessibility settings that are built into an iOS device right out of the box before you even add any apps that make these devices so accessible to individuals with disabilities. And you can see there's also a few others, such as underneath push control, there's assistive touch. Assistive touch is also great for someone who may have difficulty touching the screen. If we turn on assistive touch, you can see this little gray square appear to the right with a white dot in there. It can be moved anywhere on the screen. And when we hit the home button, it still hovers. And if we open any app, that's going to be there. And when you tap there, very light pressure tap or with a stylus, you see that you have access immediately to many things. If your home button is not accessible, you aren't able to press that home button, you can just tap home here and get right back to home. The control center, notification center, favorites that you have saved, and Siri. So most of you are probably familiar with Siri. It is the voice control of the iPad. Typically, you have to press and hold in your home button to activate Siri and ask her to do something, but with assistive touch, you can access Siri very quickly here and say commands such as, Siri, open my email. Siri, give me directions to. Siri, what is the weather today? Siri, send an email to. So for someone with a physical disability who has a very difficult time accessing the iPad physically, they could certainly access Siri through assistive touch and do many, many things that might be difficult for them otherwise. You also see underneath there, create new gesture. So if you wanted to create a custom gesture, for example, if someone had a severe contraction and was not able to open their fingers or isolate a point, they could use their fist as a swipe to turn the pages in an app or to do another, activate another gesture if you create that custom gesture for them. So you could create a new gesture, tap or swipe to create that custom gesture, and that can be definitely, again, another helpful feature for someone with a physical disability built into the iOS devices. That last one, as Louis pointed out at the beginning, that accessibility shortcut, certainly be sure if you have someone who is new to using VoiceOver, the built-in screen reader, you really want to make sure VoiceOver is checked here. It's not by default. You do need to turn it on in your accessibility shortcut. That way you'll be able to hit the home button 3 times fast and turn VoiceOver on or off very quickly. For someone who's just learning how to use VoiceOver, or even yourself if you're learning to use it, it can be very frustrating if you don't know how to get back into your settings and turn it off. A couple of great apps to use if you are learning how to use VoiceOver or your student is, VO Starter and VO Tutorial. VO, of course, for VoiceOver, and you can see the second one there says Starter. VO Starter, for example, both of these are free. We'll walk you through using VoiceOver with VoiceOver on, and you see here it tells you to turn on VoiceOver. I could, of course, just hit my home button 3 times fast, 1, 2, 3. Turn on VoiceOver.
VoiceOver on. VO Starter. Turn continue. Button. Turn on VoiceOver. Continue. Continue. Segmented control. VO Starter.
There we go.
Table view. Master the iOS accessibility selected. VoiceOver. Select VoiceOver off.
So I just went through turning VoiceOver on and off using my accessibility shortcut, hitting my home button 3 times fast. And just wanted to show you that if you use VO Starter, you'll go through buttons, alerts, text fields, table menus, etc. And it will walk you through how to use these things with VoiceOver on, and you follow the directions with VoiceOver on. And it just gives you the prompts along the way what you need to do to learn how to use VoiceOver. Once a person knows the gestures, such as 2-finger swipe down will continuously read, 3-finger swipe to the right will go through apps. It really can be a very helpful feature to use for someone who's low vision or blind, and they become very fast and adept at using it. VO Starter and VO Tutorial is another fun one. I'm just using my search feature here to pull them up. You can see at the top there the icon for VO Tutorial. VO Tutorial is a little bit more fun for students. It's just different. I typically have them do both. But they do allow you, again, you have to turn VoiceOver on to use it. It allows them to play games, like a basketball game, by doing certain gestures that are going to be used in VoiceOver, and they earn points and score shots and things like that by listening and by doing the gestures. So it's really a lot of fun for someone to learn, even adults, if they're going to use that particular app. So I just did a brief overview. You could go pretty much more into depth, but I have a lot of apps to show you this afternoon as well, but a brief overview of the built-in accessibility features that you'll want to be using with your students, and we will use them throughout part of this afternoon's training. So I'm going to pause just to ask the administrators if there's any questions right now that need to be answered.
Can you still hear me, Diana?
I can. Yes, Louis.
Okay. I just wanted to point out a couple of things. Number one is with VoiceOver, you actually have a VoiceOver practice too. So when you go into the settings, if you have VoiceOver turned on, this will only show up if you turn on VoiceOver. There is a VoiceOver practice option, and that also allows you to practice the VoiceOver gestures and basically get some practice. So there it is.
Landscape.
Sorry, I just wanted to show what you were speaking about. There's the VoiceOver practice.
So if you go into that real quick, basically you can perform any gesture and VoiceOver will tell you what it does.
VoiceOver practice. Heading. Practice VoiceOver gestures, commands, and typing in this area. Select the Done button in the top right corner and double tap to exit.
Did you want to speak more about it, Louis?
So yeah, basically that's it. If you perform a flick gesture now with, let's say, with a finger, a single finger, it will tell you what that gesture would do if you had VoiceOver turned on. So that's a great way to learn VoiceOver. The other quick tip that I have is about Speak Screen.
Yes.
So some students may not be able to perform that swipe gesture with 2 fingers from the top. Another quick way that you can enable Speak Screen is you can just have Siri do it for you. So if you turn on Siri and you say Speak Screen, it will read the contents of whatever screen you're on. But it won't work on the home screen when you have all of your apps. You have to be inside a screen where it can find text that it can read. But that's something that I found really helpful, where if you can just bring up Siri and say Speak Screen, it will do that for you. And with a lot of the accessibility options, you can turn them on and off using Siri. So for example, with VoiceOver, I can say, turn VoiceOver on to Siri, and it will do that for me as well.
Great point. Thank you very much, Louis. Were there any other questions in the chat before I move forward?
I was trying to answer some of them for you to save you some time. So.
Oh, wonderful. I love that. Thank you. Any others? We're good to go? All right. I will move forward then. And before I go into the list of apps that I'm going to show this afternoon, I also want to show a couple of other things, some tools to use with the iPad. So many of you may or may not be familiar with a stylus, which is the tool or utensil to write on the iPad or iOS devices with, iPhone, iPad mini, etc. This is just an example of one. This is the Ergo Grip. It's a built-in pencil grip, which many students like and adults enjoy as well. Another example, these are styluses from iFaraday, little I, F-A-R-A-D-A-Y. I will add these resources online to the course so that you have all of these websites to go to. And I'll go over those resources and where to find them at the end of the webinar. But just so that you're aware, there are various styluses, adaptive styluses. So you can see the bendable stylus, for example, for someone who may need it positioned in a certain way. These styluses by iFaraday, you can see, are very light to hold. They're very lightweight, and it's also a very light touch that is needed. It isn't a very heavy touch that's needed to write on the iPad or to access the iPad. There's mouse sticks, there's head sticks, and of course positioners for those head sticks, whether it's a hat or a headband to be used with them. So think of different options for your students who may be needing an adaptive stylus. Those are certainly options to use as well. And today I'm using a Belkin tablet stage stand for my iPad. These are just some examples. R.J. Cooper's tablet stand and the iClip. Let me zoom in on this one for you. This one in particular is very lightweight. R.J. Cooper is a little bit more durable and heavy. Both are mobile, however, and this iClip does come with a clamp that will clamp it to a table. R.J. Cooper also has those available. So whether you're clamping it to a table or a desk or a wheelchair tray, and you need something lightweight and portable, there are many apps that I'm going to show you today that would be beneficial to the students for using in the classroom hands-free. So they're going to want to use the app and still be able to write or to type or to see the board while they're doing something on their iPad or with an app. And these stands can be very helpful to bring from class to class, lightweight. They come apart, go in a backpack. So just keep things like this in mind, and I'll mention them as we're going through some of the apps this afternoon. So the first app that I am recommending, and you do have this, hopefully you have this handout. It is a list of the apps that I'm going over this afternoon, as well as several others that I won't get to. It is a PDF that's online on the course website. Again, I'll go over that at the end and how to access it. If you don't have it in front of you, you will have it. It is a digital PDF with a link to all of the apps in the App Store, as well as a picture of the app and a picture of the app icon and a description of the app. And you will have access to this particular handout to use as you need to throughout the course and afterwards. And again, it is about 11 pages. It might be longer than that now. I've added to it. And so we'll get to some of the apps this afternoon, and others that are on the list, feel free to check out or ask me questions about in the discussion forum after the webinar and throughout the week. Now you can see I have folders of apps, hundreds of apps on my iPad. So the way that I get to the apps quickly to show you the ones that I want to talk about is to swipe down from the screen, the middle of the screen, and it brings up that search feature. So if you have several apps on your iPad that may or may not be in folders and you want to get to one quickly, you can also use the search feature by swiping down on your screen. And the first ones that are on the handout are Dropbox and Google Drive. The one that I'll show you is Google Drive. I do use Dropbox as well. I use both of these professionally. Educators and students typically are using Google Drive, but Dropbox is also an option, especially those who are using VoiceOver. Sometimes VoiceOver is more compatible with Dropbox than Google Drive, but I know Google Drive has made significant improvements for accessibility as well. And Google Drive is used in many, many schools, especially those going Google. But overall, the idea of Google Drive and Dropbox is what's called cloud storage. And so cloud storage, sometimes that cloud is a mystery to people. Cloud storage allows you to save everything that you typically would in your documents. So if you are used to saving a Word document or PDF or Excel spreadsheet or PowerPoint in your documents or on your desktop, you can also save them to Drive or Dropbox. The difference is they are there available from any device at any location, so you won't lose them. So if you save your documents in Drive, you're able to open up Google Drive on your iPad or open up Google Drive on a laptop or desktop at school or at home while the student's doing homework, or for you personally, you can open your Drive at home if you're grading papers and get to any of the documents that you have saved. You don't have to carry one device around with you and have all of those documents on one device. You can access them from anywhere. So they're backed up. So if you have a laptop that gets a virus or your iPad breaks or you drop it, you haven't lost all of your work and your students don't lose their work. It's also a great way for students to organize papers, handouts, projects by class. They can color code folders, and teachers and students can share documents back and forth quickly with just a click of a button. We're going to get into Google Drive a little bit more in next week's webinar, but the importance of having Google Drive on your iPad is certainly to save documents from teachers, educators, workplace, what have you. You want to save worksheets, handouts, and so forth in Google Drive, and then you're able to open them in the app that I'm going to show you and do something with them. So I'm going to tap on Google Drive and open up my drive. And as an example, I'm going to use the little magnifying glass to search for a worksheet that I have in here that's a PDF called Main Idea. Several copies of this worksheet because I use it often for training. So you can see now this is just an example of a PDF worksheet maybe a teacher has shared with a student. And you want to be able to do something with this worksheet. You want the student to be able to use some accessibility features or apps to complete this worksheet and hand in to the teacher on their iPad. The way to do that, the little eye in the top right-hand corner of the screen when you open this up. If you tap on that little eye, it brings up these options. You can see this little menu to the right-hand side, and you're going to tap on the one that says Open In. So it's right underneath Add People, the little square with the right little line going to the corner, and it says Open In. And when you tap on Open In, you're going to have the option in the bottom right-hand corner to open in one more time. So you're going to tap Open In twice. And now you see a list of the apps that I have on my iPad are here. And these are the apps that I could pull this worksheet into to do something with it. The one that I'm going to choose first is called iAnnotate PDF. It's the second one over. It looks like little I and little a in script or cursive. iAnnotate PDF. When I tap on there, it now opens this worksheet in the app iAnnotate PDF that I have on my iPad. Now with iAnnotate, you have several options on the toolbar on the right-hand side. There's quite a few on there. The most used icons or tools are there on my toolbar to the right-hand side, and I can add more. One of the first features on the right-hand side in the middle, it looks like a little pencil tip. And if you tap on pencil, you see this little toolbar at the top there. You can change, and if I tap on that black square, I can change the color of my ink. Blue ink, black ink, red ink. Some teachers like to use this app for grading or for adding comments or edits to students' work, and students can use this to complete their worksheets. You can see the second slider down there is the thickness of my line. So I'm going to be writing on this with a stylus, like the ones that I showed you, the utensil or tool to write on the iPad. But even though the tip of my stylus is fat, I can make the line very thin that I'm writing with. So it doesn't need to be a thick line, or it can be. Change the color and the thickness, and then you can handwrite. I'm handwriting in that first box. It is not going to be neat because I do have my iPad at a funny angle here in my stand. You can handwrite. If this was a math worksheet, you could certainly be doing math as well. If you make a mistake, to the top right, there is the eraser. And now I'm swiping on the screen the section that I want to erase so I can get rid of a mistake. There is the option to highlight. So maybe I just want to highlight important information. Again, I could tap on there and change the highlight color. And now I could highlight just by swiping my stylus or my finger over the particular portion that I want to highlight. The ABC is the underline button. Again, make it any color you want. Underline information that's important. And the T, of course, is for typing. So you can change the text size as well as the style if you need to use Times New Roman, Arial, etc. And then you can begin typing by tapping where you want to type. So I just put name, for example, in the name section. Now, something that's really wonderful that you can do as far as accessibility when you do choose type, there are a few options. First of all, the on-screen keyboard is available, so you can type. When the on-screen keyboard is available with the iPad 3 or newer, you have the microphone at the bottom left, to the left of your spacebar. This is built-in voice recognition, speech to text. So a student who has a difficult time with spelling or grammar, fine motor, physical disability, can speak their answers into their worksheet by tapping on that microphone. Speak my words, and then tap again when you're done, and you can see it put my words right into that worksheet. No training involved. It gets better with time the more that they use this built-in voice recognition. It's also available on the iPhone after 4S. If you're looking for the particular model, 4S or newer, has the microphone available on the phone. So many of you may already be using this particular feature to speak text messages, emails, papers, notes, and certainly students can be using it to complete worksheets. Another great option with the built-in keyboard is built-in word prediction. But there are other options now for adaptive on-screen keyboards. So typically before you were only able to use this built-in on-screen keyboard, or you can use an external Bluetooth keyboard, meaning you don't have to tap on the screen. You could use a typical keyboard that connects via Bluetooth wirelessly to the iPad. That is also an option. You can use external keyboards if they need that tactile input. If you need a large print keyboard or a large contrast keyboard that's external, you can certainly connect that and be typing with that. You don't have to use the on-screen keyboard. But for someone who does benefit from the on-screen keyboard and perhaps needs a feature such as word prediction or high contrast, there are apps that you can download for adaptive keyboards, on-screen keyboards. So you would go into the App Store and you would download an app like Kidogo Plus or Keeble. It is on your handout. Once you've downloaded it, you're going to enable that keyboard in your settings, which I'll show you how to do afterwards. And then once you've enabled that keyboard in your settings, you're going to be able to pull out that keyboard in any website, worksheet. Anytime that this keyboard pulls up, you'll be able to use that adaptive keyboard or additional keyboard. The way to do that is that little globe icon that is next to the microphone. So at the bottom of the screen, the bottom of the keyboard, to the left of the microphone is that little globe icon. If I tap on there, it changes it first to the emoji keyboard. And I just tapped it again, and it brings up this keyboard. So you can see it has high contrast, color-coded vowels, word prediction at the top. And you may only choose to have one adaptive keyboard, such as Keeble or Kidogo Plus or Read and Write. I'm going to go through a few of them. You may only choose to have one or two, and then when you tap on the globe, it will go back to the typical keyboard. I have about 7 downloaded on mine. So when I tap on, oh, I hear some feedback from someone else. Perhaps someone just joined and needs to be muted. Thank you. So I'm going to tap on the globe again to get to another keyboard as an example. This is the Swipe keyboard. Many of you may be fans of Swipe. And you literally just do that. You swipe from one letter to the next without lifting your finger off of the keyboard. So even for someone who may have a difficult time lifting their fingers off of the keys, you can swipe from letter to letter. So for example, if I'm tapping my keyboard, you should be able to follow where my fingers are going. So you can see that word prediction pulls up as well as the ability to swipe between letters. And this can certainly speed up typing for someone who may have a difficult time lifting their finger off the keyboard. So I tap on next keyboard. This is the read and write keyboard. This is from the Maker's Text Help, and you can choose to have word prediction and a few other options such as dictionary and picture dictionary. You can change the theme. If I tap the globe again, you can see the option for the color-coded, maybe for younger users. If you tap on the globe here, we can get to, oops, I meant to go into settings on that one. I'll have to go around again. I don't want to waste too much time, but you can change the settings in the Kidogo and Kibo keyboards for changing the predictive words, the words that are predicted to from 1 to 10 or to unlimited. You can make it larger and smaller. You can change the black and white keyboard or color keyboard, QWERTY to alphabetical. You have many options on those particular keyboards from AssistiveWare that you can customize for students. But we'll move on to this one as well, the Big Keys keyboard. You can see that this is separated chunks of the letters into different groups. So for example, if I wanted to type A, I can tap on that group, and now I can tap the letter A or W or E. It makes it larger for me to see, and I can choose what letter I want. If I tap on another section, it becomes large, and then I can tap on the letter that I need. So some different options for adaptive keyboards, and now we're back to the typical on-screen keyboard. So while a student is filling in this worksheet, they can use their voice, they can use word prediction from another keyboard, they could use a tactile keyboard, many different options for them to be able to complete this worksheet. On the right-hand side, a few other tools underneath the highlighter. There's the sticky notes. There's the little printer button. You can print information from the iPad or iOS device. Your iPad needs to be on the same Wi-Fi network as the printer, whether you're at school or at home, and then you'll be able to print from it. I do it all the time. So they can print off this worksheet to hand in. If that's not an option, they can email it. If you tap on the little envelope, you would email the annotated so that the annotations, meaning what you highlighted or wrote or typed on the paper, will also go to the teacher or person who's receiving it. If you just choose annotated, that means someone on the other end who might have iAnnotate can also add annotations. So again, sometimes English teachers and other teachers also choose to have this app on their iOS device, and they like to make corrections, comments, etc., and send it back to the student. If you email the flattened, that means that it's going to go along with the annotations, and it can't be changed on the other end, and comments can't be made, so it's the final copy. When this worksheet is emailed to someone, it's emailed as a typical PDF. So if you're opening it on a laptop or any other device, you don't have to have iAnnotate to read it. It does send as a typical PDF. Many individuals use these in business. So for example, if I'm on the road at a conference or for whatever reason, somebody sends me a form that I need to fill out. I have my iPad, I fill it out and iAnnotate, I email it back to them. No need to print, no need to scan, any of those things. They have all the annotations. So it's a very helpful app. There are a couple of other apps to annotate PDF. There's quite a few, of course, available in the App Store. These are just a few of them to give you an idea. This is iAnnotate PDF. A couple other options that you may choose for your students. One of them is called Claro PDF. I'm going to go back to Drive and start from there. We'll open up that same worksheet, but we'll open it in Claro. So open in again, and we'll choose Claro PDF. And some differences with Claro PDF. Oh, I do have to turn up the volume just a little bit. So some of these apps with the built-in speech, I'm going to turn up so you can hear. You're going to hear a little bit of feedback and echo, but I want you to hear that it does read it out loud.
Main idea direction.
So the difference with Claro PDF as opposed to iAnnotate is if the student or individual needs the worksheet read out loud to them as well. This one will read it out loud to them. the toolbar looks just a little bit different. So I tapped on the pencil at the top, and you can see my toolbar is at the top with this particular app. You can still choose the pencil to handwrite, choose the thickness, the color, etc., and you would be able to handwrite. And the eraser is there as well. In the settings for Claro PDF, if I tap on the gear and go into settings, you can change the speaking rate. Right now it's at 150 words per minute. You can slow it down, speed it up. You can change the voice name. So maybe they want to choose a different voice. Right now it's on Samantha. Background color, speaking rate, etc. So quite a few options. There's also the options for choosing the highlight color and many other things that you can do with this particular app. And of course, you can send it out through email and so forth as well. So if you also want the option to have the worksheet or handout read out loud, then Claro PDF is a nice option for completing the worksheets. And again, remember, if you choose type in any of these worksheets, when you tap speed and typing, you can use the on-screen keyboard, an external tactile keyboard, a large print keyboard, or any of those other keyboard apps that I went through, if you need word prediction, high contrast, larger text, etc. And the microphone for voice recognition or speech to text to be able to speak your words into that document. And the last one that I wanted to show you, again, there's just a few of these PDF annotation apps. Open in again, and this one is PDF Expert. Just again to show you your options. Some people prefer one over the other. The toolbar is on the left-hand side. When you type into it, it gives you the hints for what you need to do. You can change the color, etc., for the type very quickly and easily. And you have, very similar options to the other apps that I showed you. You can see the toolbar is just put up a little bit differently here. All great options depending on what the features are that your student needs for completing worksheets or handouts. So I annotate PDF, Claro PDF, PDF Expert, all of them on the handout. And again, just going to pause to see if there's any questions about the particular apps that I've shown thus far. And my iPad is reflecting on the screen. I can't see the chat. I would have to stop sharing my screen to see the chat. But
I think people are just sharing a few other options that they've tried, Diana, such
Great.
as Paperport Notes,
Yep.
SnapType. I also suggest to explain everything because you can import a PDF and then record yourself annotating and put
Love
it out
it.
as a video,
Absolutely.
which is great for feedback. So I don't see any questions right now. I think it's just some suggestions of other apps.
Wonderful. I love the sharing, and feel free to share in the discussion board this week as well. So those are great options. I love SnapType as well, especially for handwritten worksheets. Explain Everything is phenomenal for completing projects, as you mentioned. So thank you for sharing all of those with each other. The next app that I want to show you is called Voice Dream Reader. And before I show you the app, I want to speak about a program that you can use with this particular app called Bookshare. So I'm going to bookshare.org and just want to make a quick point about Bookshare if you're not familiar. If you are familiar and you've used it in the past and it was frustrating, it's come a long way. Much more fast, efficient, quick to get books very quickly to students in the same day that you sign up. Bookshare is free for all schools, public K through 12, as well as individuals with a print disability. So you can see here, free for U.S. students, and if schools were to sign up as an organization, which I highly encourage all schools to do, you sign up very quickly and easily for free. Anyone can start it. It takes just a couple minutes to fill out the form about the information of your school, and then you'll get started adding teachers as sponsors to download books for students, and you'll add students as members to download books for your students, or for students to also download books for themselves with an individual account. So these schools can have an organizational account for free, and students and adults with a print disability who are in education K through 12 or post-secondary can have an individual membership for free as well. And this is to access textbooks such as those large textbooks in the classroom, math, science, reading, social studies, all of those books that they'd be using large textbooks in the classroom, as well as chapter books, novels, things for pleasure reading, research, silent sustained reading, book reports, so many books available in the library. You can see it's well over 350,000 titles, and they continue to add to their library every day. Your students who qualify for Bookshare are those with a print disability. So that includes your students who are blind or low vision. They can't see the text. The students with learning disabilities, such as specific LD, dyslexia, or reading several grade levels below their peers, struggling with fluency in decoding. Students who have a physical disability and can't turn the pages of the book. Cortical visual impairment, traumatic brain injury. All of those things qualify students to use Bookshare for free. So if you aren't using it, I'm sure you have students that you have in mind that you could be using it for currently. When you have Bookshare, you download the books, and through Bookshare, if you were using it on a laptop or a desktop of any kind, a computer, there's free software through the same organization website to download to read the books out loud. So you can certainly do it that way. Today we're doing it on the iPad. So if you have a Bookshare account, you can connect it to the app that I'm going to show you in order to have the books read out loud and many other accessibility features that I'm going to show you. So once you have a Bookshare account, you have one for your student or your student has one for themselves, you can use the app called Voice Dream Reader. Now again, if you've used Bookshare previously, there is another app that also accesses Bookshare books put out by Bookshare and Benetech called Read to Go, Read and the number 2 and Go. That is also a great app to use to access Bookshare books, especially if you want some of the pictures and graphs involved and so forth. The difference is with Read to Go, there's only 2 voices available. You do have the option to increase text size and highlight, etc., some of the other things, but you only have access to Bookshare books. Voice Dream Reader gives you access to Bookshare books, but it also gives you access to documents, PDFs, worksheets, handouts, and other things that you also need these accessibility features for students. And it's half the price. So it's the reason why I recommend Voice Dream Reader if you have a student that wants to access their Bookshare books. So you can see the icon at the top of my screen, Voice Dream, and it's called Voice Dream Reader in the App Store. When you tap on Voice Dream, it does open up to your bookshelf. And you can see on my bookshelf, I have books that I've downloaded from Bookshare, Diary of a Wimpy Kid, Because of Winn-Dixie, Introduction to Medical Terminology, Transition Mathematics, etc., The Outsiders, Harry Potter. And then I also have a Word document and a PDF to show you what those look like. And those I pulled in from my Google Drive and Dropbox. So the first thing you do when you're in Voice Dream Reader, go back to my bookshelf. Hopefully you're able to see it. It looks like on my screen that the tools on the bottom are hidden a little by my toolbar here. But on the right-hand side on the bottom, it looks like a little gear icon. And this is how you get into your settings. And you can see here that you can connect to your Google Drive or Dropbox account. You would just tap on it, put in the same email and password that you use for Google Drive on any device, same one. And at the very bottom here, Evernote, if you have Evernote users, you can connect to that. And the last one says Bookshare. So you would put in your email and password for your Bookshare account, and then you're going to be connected to Bookshare and be able to download the books into this particular app. You only have to connect to your accounts the first time, and then you're forever connected. You don't have to do it every time, but you do need to do it the first time in order to access either your Drive or your Dropbox or your Bookshare. Once you're connected, on the bottom left-hand side is a little plus sign, add something to my bookshelf, and we tap on the plus sign. The list appears, and of course I could choose my Google Drive and pull in any of the Word documents or PDFs from there. I could choose Dropbox, and on the very last one I could choose Bookshare. Gutenberg is another one that's there that's also a great resource for copyright-free books if you want to access any from Gutenberg. So you would tap on Bookshare. You can search for a book by the title or popular, latest, school grade, etc. When you hit search, you can see that you can download any of the books that are available here by tapping download. And when you hit download, it's going to bring you to your student list. If you're an educator, if you're a student, it will just begin downloading it. And just takes a matter of seconds, and then it's on your bookshelf in just a matter of seconds. So if the student gets to a classroom and the teacher passes out a new book they didn't know ahead of time, they need to have access to it on their iPad. They can go through the download process very quickly and easily, or a teacher could put it onto the iPad for the student as well very quickly in just a couple of seconds. Once you have the book on the iPad, you can certainly open up the book. It was both black and gray at this point with smaller text. I've changed the accessibility settings several times throughout training them with students. And so yours will look black and gray if you're following along. There is a free version of the app, and it won't look like my screen, but you could make it look like mine. Some of the options in the top right, what looks like a little speaker, these are your speech options. So you can change the speech rate faster or slower. So if you wanted to slow down the speed or speed it up. There are voices available. It comes with Heather for free. And then if you choose to, you can see that there are several voices that you can add by tapping on Add Voices. There are English voices, voices with accents from other countries, child voices, adult voices, and the great thing about this particular app is that it lets you play a sample before you buy it. So they're anywhere from $1.99 to $4.99, but you can play a sample before you buy it. You can really see if that's a voice that you as a student can listen to for a long time. The more expensive voices, which are $4.99, are the higher quality, nicer sounding, natural speaking voices, so they don't sound as synthesized or robotic. And it is just that one-time fee. Once you've bought that voice, you have it forever, unlimited books, unlimited documents to read. It's a one-time fee that you would pay for that particular voice. And a new one was just released, I haven't downloaded yet, called Sharon, and it's supposed to be really great for an English voice, so I'll have to download that one and check it out. I currently have Sally chosen on mine. In the text settings, there are really so many things that you can do with the text in Voice Dream Reader that I love. So I tapped on the big A and little a in the top right-hand corner there, and you can see that I have many text options that I can change. I can change the spoken word, the spoken line, so I can have those highlighted. Under lines visible, right now all of the lines are visible. I can choose to just have 5 lines or 3 lines or 1 line, which can be very helpful, similar to what you're using, probably those little plastic viewers for students if they're reading in a typical textbook. The font style can be changed, and what's great about Voice Dream Reader is you have the option for dyslexia or any other these fonts that you can see as I'm tapping them, they're changing, as well as the Open Dyslexic. If you're not familiar with the Dyslexia font or Open Dyslexic, that is a font that was created by an individual who has dyslexia, has the heavier weighted tops and bottoms of the letters, and for some individuals with dyslexia has shown to improve reading comprehension, fluency, and speed. I do have a significant amount of students and adults that I have worked with who have chosen this font, and the students in school have shown that their reading scores have improved and they enjoy reading better with this particular font. It doesn't help everyone, but it's wonderful that you can change the text of any book or worksheet or handout to this particular font if you do have a student who responds positively to it. And any of the other text styles that they would want to choose that are available in this list. Text size, the book pulled in probably at a smaller size around here. You can see you can increase the text size up to 90 points. So for your students who are low vision, there's no need to continue to enlarge those pages with a scanner. You can have the large print if you have a student who's low vision and responds well to this particular text size, or just a larger font size. They can change the font, again, of their books, the worksheets or handouts that you might pull in, etc. So you increase the text size. Now there's also the option for character spacing. So if I turn this back to default, no spaces between characters and lines. And then I just hit the plus sign a couple times on the character spacing, you see the difference, and the line spacing, you see the difference. This can really spread the text out and make it easier for students to read, especially those who might have a hard time jumping around, going from the end of one sentence to the beginning of another. You can change the side margins. And at the bottom, there are the color themes. You could choose light, you could choose dark, and you can choose custom. And with custom, you can see the spoken word color that I have chosen is yellow. The spoken line color is blue. You see that on the screen as well. If I tap on any of these squares, I can move that little dot to any color I want. I can move the slider underneath to light or dark of that color, and then set it, and then that would be my chosen color. The highlight color is what color my highlights are going to be for important information. I'll show you how to do that. Text color black, background color is green. A lot of times, students really like to have a background color other than white for the contrast, and you can change that again to whatever color you prefer. This is also a great way, if you change the black background color to black, for example, and the text color to yellow or white, you can choose or create rather that high contrast that many students may prefer as well. Put this back to the preview settings. I'm going to set it to green and black text again. And now it does have the text-to-speech. Again, you're going to hear a little bit of an echo, but I want you to hear as I play it that you can have the words spoken out loud.
Mechanical bird. That's how he talks, like words out of a dictionary. So smart you can hardly believe it.
So there wouldn't be an echo on your end, of course, and it really is nice text-to-speech that's available with nicer sounding voices. In the bottom left-hand corner, there is the option for searching by chapters, as well as bookmarks or highlights if you create any. That can be very helpful to get back to bookmarks, which is the top right-hand corner, the little icon, and highlights that you create. As you're highlighting for information, you can get right back to that highlighted content. Comprehension questions, studying for a test. The bottom right-hand corner is a little magnifying glass, and this is a search feature. Again, you're searching for getting back to a particular part of the book. Maybe it's because you need to reread something, or for a comprehension question you need to answer. So if I just type in the word wings, for example, and hit search, all the places where the word wings pops up, and I can get right back to that. It is, of course, on this particular page. Let's see if the word bird is anywhere else in the book. There we go. So there's several places where the bird is mentioned, and we could get back to that particular part of the book. Underneath the bottom left symbol, the dots and the lines, says 19 of 192. That's what page I'm on. If I tap on there, I can go to whatever page that I need to be on. It does sync with the pages of the textbook, so it is listed, the page numbers are listed after the copyright criteria message at the beginning, which is nice. And then pressing and holding on the screen. And just press and hold my finger on the screen and you see this toolbar appear. I have a few different options here. I could define the word. If I'm not familiar, I can get a definition. I could search the web further for that particular word. Pressing and holding on the screen, I can move these blue dots and choose the word highlight, which is in that toolbar above. And that's the highlight color that I chose when I was in my settings. I can change that to any color I want, yellow, purple, what have you. And I can also choose to add a sticky note. So if I need to remember this for a comprehension question or to go back to later, and you can have those sticky notes read out loud. These sticky notes are great for studying. They're great because they don't fall off in the backpack. The student opens the book and they're able to get back to those sticky notes. A lot of educators will help set these sticky notes with the students while they're working with them one-on-one. So when the student goes home to read, they're stopping at those sticky notes with those prompts such as, what just happened? What do you think is going to happen next? Has this ever happened to you? Those great metacognitive skills that you're working with students, and those are great prompts for them to stop and reflect. If I tap on my home button, I'll just show you an example of a Word document that I pulled in from my Google Docs, or my Google Drive rather, or my Dropbox. So this is just a typical Word document. It would look like this if they pulled it in. They would be able to have it read out loud to them. And they can also tap the pencil button. And this is going to change it to an editable document. So again, they can change the text, type into it, speak into it, save it, etc. And if I tap my home button one more time, back to my bookshelf, I'll tap on a PDF. This is an example of what a PDF looks like. So you can have it look like the typical worksheet or handout with the pictures, the difference being that they can have it read out loud. And I'd have to turn the volume up, but I don't want to cause that, echo sound for you again, but know that you can have them read out loud. A right swipe on the screen does get rid of the formatting if you wanted to just have the plain text read out loud from that PDF, and right swipe on the screen puts it back to the typical view as well. So still didn't even get into all of the features of VoiceStream Reader because there's still quite a few apps that I want to show you with the time that we have left, but a lot of features in VoiceStream Reader for students to access worksheets, handouts, books with that accessible text, whether it's large print, high contrast, text-to-speech, etc. And I am going to move on to more apps, but I'll pause briefly just to ask again if there's any questions out there yet. All right, I think we're good to move on. Not going in order if you do have the handout in front of you, just because I want to touch upon some of the really important apps that I want to get to, and we can definitely continue to discuss other apps in the discussion board throughout the week. Another app that I want to show is called Notability. Notability looks like a little half pencil, half microphone. This is a wonderful app to support students taking notes independently. So on the left-hand side, you see my folders. You can create folders for each class by tapping on the plus sign and create subjects. So now I can create a new subject. And you can see I have my CTD folder at the bottom there. I just created that folder very quickly and easily. If I tap edit, I can edit my folders by the little gear icon to the right. I could change the name. I can change the color, so I can color code my folders, especially if I'm doing so with my classes or my binders. I could password protect it, and I can delete it. When that class is done, I'm able to delete that particular class. And of course, I can move them in the order that I need to for my classes if I have the same schedule every day. I know I'm in a folder when I tap on it. I tapped on social studies. The tab moves over. It says social studies at the top. If I tap on CTD, I'm in my CTD folder, and it says CTD at the top. And now I want to take a new note in my CTD folder. I'm going to tap on the pencil to the top right. And you see I have a brand new sheet of note paper here. What I typically do to start is I tap on the wrench to the top right, and I choose my paper. This is really great. I can put a little color behind it for contrast. I can choose lines, smaller lines or thicker lines as I need it. I can choose graph paper if I'm in math class. And then I start the audio recording, the little microphone in the top right-hand corner. Audio records as I'm taking notes. So for your students who have a difficult time processing, paying attention, and taking notes at the same time, they're going to have an audio recording of this to go back to add to their notes, to find out what they missed. They don't have to write everything down that was said, and they don't have to spell everything correctly. The pencil is available to change the color as well as the thickness of the line, so they can handwrite their notes. Again, if it's math class, if they were graphing and they had graph paper up, they could be graphing along. There is an eraser if they make a mistake. Very quick and easy to erase a mistake. The highlighter, this is important, I need to remember it. Maybe the teacher says something like photosynthesis, they don't know how to spell it, but they're going to go back to it later. And text, of course, if they want to type text, they could type text wherever they begin. Use full editing privileges there to change the size, font, etc. The plus sign at the top right, this is really neat. You can take a photo or bring in a photo that you've already taken. So if you take a photo of the homework on the board, or the teacher puts up a great big graphic organizer about Greek mythology and they don't want to copy it all down, take a picture, pull it into these notes. You can take a photo immediately, maybe of a lab, or you can pull in a photo you already have on your iPad. Let's see if we get to, here we go. So even if it was a picture of a worksheet or a handout, they could make this larger. They could write on top of it, for example. They could fill it in if they needed to type it. They can pull in clips and pictures from the web. So they could go to Google Images and pull in images, for example. There's really a lot that they can do with Notability. And then, of course, the most important, if we stop the recording and want to play it, I'm going to tap on different parts of my notes here so you can hear it. I am going to have to turn up the volume a little too. We're going to report that to remember it. There's really a lot that they can do with Notability. So it is reading the text and going back over the notes that was set at that particular time. So even if there were 5 pages of notes, for example, they could go right to page 5, tap on that part of the notes and have that read out loud to them. And the notes can be emailed, saved in Google Drive, shared, etc., saved in iTunes for the recording. There's really a lot available for students to do with that particular note-taking app. I'm going to show 2 more real quick and then take any questions. We'll just talk a little bit about the online course itself. Better Vision is an excellent app for your students who may be low vision. There's also Vision Assist and a few others that are really great. Essentially turn your iPad into a magnifier and possible CCTV if you're using one of those iPad apps that I told you about. So you have this app on the iPad. They can certainly choose magnification. And you can magnify, this is the handout for example, you can magnify it by using the slider. You can pause it so that you can move that around at the magnification. And the palette allows you to change high contrast. And you can change what that particular color is in your settings. You can choose black and yellow, for example, yellow and black. So those similar settings that they would use as a CCTV, but using the iPad app. Better Vision, and Vision Assist is also another great one. And Tools for Students and Tools for Students 2 each have 25 graphic organizers. Tools for Students 2 has 25 more, and you can create your own. So for example, Main Idea, again, for the typical graphic organizers that your students are using to organize thoughts and so forth before they write a paper, tap anywhere in here, use the keyboard or accessibility features that we spoke of, and then you can email this, print it out, save it as a PDF, link it to Google Drive, etc. And there's also some great brainstorming apps to write with word banks, such as Quicker Sentences. There's really a great amount of apps on this particular handout that I gave you for math support, every type of math from elementary school, preschool, all the way through high school, and apps for writing support, behavioral support, graphic organizers, augmentative communication. So I do have to pause quickly just to show you. I wanted to show you, for those of you who are taking the course through Center on Technology and Disability, wonderful that they are offering this course. We will be having 2 more webinars. We'll be talking online on the discussion board, and you do have activities to complete. So if you go to the CTD website and see upcoming and demand courses if you haven't been there yet. Hopefully you have. But there's my course there. You'll log in and you'll be able to, I thought I was logged in, maybe I got kicked out there. But you do want to go to the different activities and resources. There are video resources on there for you. There's the iOS accessibility resource. And there are places for you to answer the discussion questions or ask me any questions throughout the week. And there are places for you to add your activities that you're going to be doing throughout the week with the apps. And if you have any questions on any of the apps that I showed or was not able to show, please feel free to put them there. And I will also answer any questions that you have currently if there's any in the chat for us right now. I'm just going to stop sharing my screen so you're not going to see my iPad screen any longer. So I can check out. Okay, great. So most of you have found the handout. There's a link to it on the right-hand side of your screen, but there's definitely online available for you under resources and under the particular activity and lesson of the week. So whether it's week 1 or week 2 or week 3, you'll be able to find the handouts and materials there. Nancy, I have the grayed out dialog box that says download files, but I can't do that. All right, I will check with administration to find out what the solution is for that question, Nancy. It is CTE who's running that website, so I'll find out what happens if a particular option is grayed out. And Patty doesn't have that either. Okay, we'll make sure that you are fully registered for the course and that you're able to download those materials. I have those questions recorded, so we'll make sure we ask administration in regards to your access to those files. We'll make sure we get them. Oh, Anna Maria put up a nice link for us to the course, the e-learning course. Thank you. And if there are no other questions, then there you go. Anna Maria, if you can't download those materials, please send Anna Maria an email. And there's her email address there, ctd@fhi360.org. So for any of you who are not able to download that file, please email Anna Maria. If you post that question to me in the discussion forum, I'll make sure they get that as well, and I'm sure they'll see it. Patty found it. Awesome. Excellent to hear. Thank you for joining us this afternoon, and I will see you on the discussion board this week. I look forward to the conversations, questions, and activities. And I will also see you next week for the next live webinar. Thanks for attending.